I am so glad that this is finally being talked about. I am so glad. Um, One of the things that I have a passion for is that I think that Christians should be the healthiest people on the planet. Because I think if you have a deep relationship with the Lord, then you really shouldn't um, be using food as a coping mechanism. So I think we should be the most healthy people on the planet. And I am so glad that Tasha Cobbs is finally talking about this. So we're going to just listen. I'm going to put this on double time and we're just going to listen and talk about and praise and um, congratulate her on finally just being honest. Just being honest.
The magazine says, but because you're plus size, you don't make the homecoming court, but we'll give you this. You can sing the national anthem. You know, and the older I got, that darkness was still there. I would literally minister at church. I would watch them be healed. And I would go home and just be in the dark. Like I would be plagued. And I'll never forget one night I woke up and I know it was Holy Spirit. He said to me,
let's rewind the tape a little bit. Let's go back to about 2014. You did the celebration of the gospel on BET. And somebody shouted you out. Nikki. The Barbie gave you a shout out, which leads to a friendship. And then 2017, a collaboration. It's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Why would you take the risk? Like, what made you say, I'm gonna do it?
I might get some lashing about this, but I'm saying anyway.
This is The Deep End with Lecrae.
All right. Check this out. We got somebody super special for y'all today. I don't know how season 2 we got blessed with the best outs and the billboards and the Grammys, but let's go back to little Tasha.
Little
you know what I mean? You know what I mean? So just like you was a PK.
Yeah.
So talk to us about we're like growing up a PK in Georgia, from Georgia.
Yep.
What was life like for? I didn't grow up in church, so I didn't get saved till I was a grown man. So I'm like,
talked about that.
yeah. So what's that? What was life like as a PK? What's the highs, the lows?
I am the definition of a church kid.
Okay.
Like when you think about church kid, that's me. I love church.
Yeah.
When my parents would discipline me, the discipline was you don't get to go to choir rehearsal, you don't get to go. I love church like that. Like I was the church kid. But I look back. I think the older you get, you start to realize some areas where there was deficiency or trauma.
Okay.
Like for me, and I've had this conversation a bit more with my mother now more recently because I'm more verbal about it.
Okay.
For me, I do feel like because I was a very mature kid, I at a very young age, there was a calling that people could, you could see that it's there.
Yeah.
I think that I was exposed to a little bit more than possibly a 10-year-old should have been exposed to. Like, the dramas of church,
Yeah, you in the elders meetings.
these are, things of that sort. I remember vividly when I was younger, like one of the deacons came to me and was like, hey, while y'all at school, make sure my son is doing his homework. Make sure, the weight of responsibility.
Oh my gosh, this is so true. This is called the adultification of Black girls that happens all the time in churches. We like to make young girls women sooner than they should be because a lot of girls look older than they are. So a lot of girls are built, especially if they're overweight. And she said she was a big girl. They tend to develop like women sooner. And so we, for some reason, treat them like women and then treat the boys like little kids. And this is actually too much for a kid. I actually recently had a conversation with one of my athletes and I said, I had to tell her, like, it's actually okay for you. You don't have to be the adult in the room. You don't have to be the mature one. You actually get to be a kid. And like, I watched tears well up into her eyes because we praise girls, not just Black girls, but we really do praise Black girls for this. But we praise young girls for being adults and like acting like women. But they actually, just because their bodies are physically women, their minds are not. Their minds are not ready and shouldn't be holding that responsibility. They should be worried about themselves. And so I can relate to this. And I can tell you that this is part of the trauma when you have to be the adult, which means you think adults aren't emotional. You think adults don't have issues. You think adults are perfect. And so where do my emotions go? They go knee deep in a bag of chips.
Responsibility that shouldn't belong to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so when though I love church, I feel like there was just some responsibilities that I was expected to carry that shouldn't have been on a 10-year-old.
10 is crazy.
Right. You know what I'm saying? So my dad actually started pastoring our church when I was 10. So I grew up in our family church at first. Okay. So our family was very, very active. All of my mom's sisters, my grandmother, my grandfather was a chairman deacon, so it was a family church. And then when I was 10, my dad launched a church in Scriven, Georgia, which was about 10 minutes outside of our hometown, Jessup. So say the name of the place where the church was. Scriven. Come on, shout out to Scriven. I don't know if I've ever did a shout out to Scriven.
Everybody's Scriven like, yeah,
finally.
all 8 of y'all.
Yes. And so when he did that, the responsibilities even became more heavy because now I'm the pastor's kid. So you got the responsibilities of, the Sunday school administrator, you teaching Bible studies. By 12, I was doing all kinds of stuff. And it's cool because it was popular back then, but I think sometimes you just want to be a kid. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I was not that kid. So take the pressure off my mother. I was a kid who was just grown too. Okay. So when you look back, I was that same Tasha like that I am now. I was a thinker. I was
clearly.
Yeah.
You were like,
sorry, you guys, I had to move because my husband has to get on a call. So I have to go back and I have to go into the room. But what I wanted to say about this is I can totally relate because when you're a PK, you're expected to take on all of these responsibilities. And there's nothing wrong with that, but the other kids who are not PKs just get to run around and do whatever. They're not always responsible. And as I said before, there's a time and a place for girls to be responsible. And it's not when they're that young. Like you don't ever want to force a girl to grow up too soon. Because the other thing is that men start to see them for being older than they are. And y'all know I'm not about that. So she's 100% right. As a PK, I can tell you that there's just extra responsibility that you're expected to take on as a kid. And then you're praised for it. And so of course you're like, well, I'm doing the right thing and this is what I should be doing. Turns out 15, 20 years from now, you're like, wow, I really never got to be a kid. And I've never connected with the joys of just being a child. And this is, of course, people are so dumb in the church sometimes. We don't have any nuance. This is not to say that kids should never have responsibility, but there's adults for a reason. There's adults for a reason and there's children for a reason. And there's a fine line between turning kids into adults very early and giving them just enough responsibility.
Put myself on a fast. I was just doing too much.
Tasha,
you know what I'm saying? I was doing 3-day fast when
hold on, time out.
Y'all don't judge me.
We are figuring out what crayons we gonna use.
I'm okay. This is the truth. My cousins would be like watching cartoons and stuff. I'm in there watching Jimmy Swaggart and Benny Hinn. I would make my brother lay hands on the TV back then. Benny Hinn, I gotta teach you this is church stuff from back in the day.
Different.
Benny Hinn would be like, hey, I feel healing. So I would tell my brother because my brother wore glasses. Like, God's gonna heal your eyes. Put your hands on the TV. And they were crazy enough to just listen to me. I was that kid. I was super. So right now,
nobody was like, I just want to watch Tom and Jerry.
I just want to watch Tom. I want to play Nintendo. What are we doing? Why are we in a prayer conference?
Okay, wait a minute. No, because I'm sorry, I got to camp out because I've never heard anything like this in my life.
Really?
No, like ever. I got some churchy friends. Like you win.
I'm at the top.
If there's a churchy battle, you won the battle with the Benny Hinn hands on the television.
Listen,
like that's
you gonna get healed today.
Okay, so wait, so you preaching stuff at 10 years old?
I did my first sermon when I was 10.
Ollie and
which is just crazy. Like you don't have enough wherewithal to do that at 10 years old.
What was the goal? Like what in your mind? If you could go back as a little you, what do you feel like the goal was? Like were you just like, was your mind like, I just want to be holy? Or was you like, I'm gonna be a pastor, I'm gonna be a leader? Like what was the goal of all of this?
That's so crazy for you to ask what the goal was. I have no clue. No, I feel like it was fulfilling purpose. I really believe that. I feel like it plays a major part in who I am today. Yeah. Honestly.
You were just being you then.
Yeah, it was me. It was me through and through. Like literally at school, I have a even when we were in high school. In high school, one of my aunts was the social studies teacher in 3rd hall. Yeah. And all of us church kids would hang out in the hall. We'd be out there singing church songs. She would come out and say, there's a time and a place for everything under the sun. I think she was in the same church as us. Yeah. But she's like, y'all are doing too much. Be kids right now. So yeah.
Yeah, that was a blessing. She knew.
I think it plays a major part in who I am right now. But honestly, just this is comical. But when it comes to fasting, I be telling my husband, like, listen, I got fast stored up. I started when I was 10. Y'all need to respect there and get one of those.
Nah, baby. You got to do that one on your own, baby.
Yes, relax. I got fast stored up.
Church fast, except me. Okay. So, and I know I'm thinking of me, but I really don't know this world, this life. Yeah. So when, as a young teenager, you're going through puberty and all of that type of stuff, and there's desires, temptations, like, are you just, there was no sense of like, I gotta rebel or I gotta, like, you didn't go through that?
I love this question because I have to give kudos to my parents who were they made sure that we were balanced.
Okay.
So even though I was well churched, they made sure we had, and I grew up in a Pentecostal holiness church. So back then, but they didn't make us do it.
Okay.
Like, so I wore pants. We went to the movies. We went to the parties. And that, they were very, very intentional about creating balance for my brothers and I. And even my cousins, the whole family, I guess they were in agreement with it. So I played sports. I played basketball. I was, a part of every team. Softball, track. I did all of these things that created balance in my life. Okay. So I wasn't like the kid that was out there prophesying and preaching at church, but I had a strong foundation in the church. But my parents made sure that I understood there was so much more to life than, speaking in tongues and falling on the floor all day. Even when I would do the fast, my parents would be like, Tasha, you need to...
Which I actually think is really important. Like I often think about, you can say, because here's the truth, you're going to see things in the world that you have to know how to deal with. So to be able to say, yeah, people are going to be acting like this. You're going to be going to these events. You're going to be, in college. You're going to be at a work event. And you have to learn how to be around that and not participate. Unless your job is like solely a church job. Like you're going to have to go to happy hours and you may be the person who doesn't drink. So you have to learn how to navigate that. You need to, and also there is this level of like exposure that can happen at like 16, I would say 16, 17, not younger than that. That's actually healthy, where you're exposed to some elements of the real world. So you're not like, oh, I need to go rebel. That's an intentional practice that parents have to engage in.
Need to chill out.
You better put Father Flow to clean up your room.
Right, exactly. You know what? They made sure that I had a balanced life, and I'm so appreciative for that, because it's there could have been the tendency to lean too far, to the left or to the right, but they made sure that I was balanced.
Does that make sense? You weren't forced.
Yeah.
This was your choice.
Yep.
You desired it. That shocked me.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, you've been living with this, and I never even thought about it. But you was like, yeah, I was the plus size girl.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, but see, I'm saying how even me, I can just look at your accomplishments. I can look at how well you sing. I can look at everything, and I think, oh, that's something that could be internally created. So what was that like? It was.
People ask me all the time, even coming into the industry. I think I just had this ability to compartmentalize things. Like I feel like the prejudices were there.
Okay.
But I was so here that I just, I'm so focused on what I believe God has called me to do.
Yep.
I'm not going to worry about what you're saying about my appearance.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And though I felt it, I didn't focus on it.
Okay.
And it goes back to what you were just, I was so driven that I didn't have time to stop and deal with the whatever people were saying about my appearance.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Were there like people saying stuff?
It would be, comments and stuff for sure. Yeah. I remember one time, there was a comment where somebody would say, you can't leave me in the worship because I can't get past, the way she looks. It just things like that.
And I will say that there is a level of ignoring that you have to do, because a lot of women who are obese are exactly like this. I made a video called Why Very Successful Women Are Overweight. It's because they are very, very driven so much that they will ignore their health. That has actually served her to ignore her health. So it makes a lot of sense to me that she would say, I didn't focus on it. Yeah, that's actually that's a way to cope with it, is that you just say, I'm so successful, I don't need to. And people are commenting about her appearance, which again, health is not about your appearance, which I'm sure she'll get to. Health is about your health. So I don't care if you're 150 pounds or 250 pounds or 100 pounds. If you're running yourself into the ground and ignoring your health on either end, you're still unhealthy.
And back then it was like MySpace and Facebook, but still it impacts you. To this day, you can have 1 million positive comments.
Sure.
And
focus on that one. Focus on that one.
Yeah, the one, it'll just rub you the wrong way. And so that was just another place where I had to overcome whatever comes with this platform, And so I even then I would do like, hey, big girls rock, big. And I don't know that I fully believed it.
They don't. I'm so glad she said this. She's being so honest right now. You don't believe it, because at the end of the day, it's not about whether or not you're big or not. It's whether or not you respect yourself. It's whether or not you take care of yourself. So you can be like, oh, big girls rock, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, you have to look at yourself in the mirror and go, do I respect myself? And people who respect themselves do not stuff their faces with food when they get lonely and neglect their bodies. So I'm so glad that she's being honest with you guys.
You can say one thing, but feel something else. Yeah. And I feel like it was the thing to say, because I'm a plus size girl with a platform. People are watching me. People are following me. There's this song that is going crazy.
Same thing with Lizzo, right? Lizzo said that. Adele said that. Monique said that. Oprah said it. And the truth is that, again, this is why it's so important to have integrity. I always talk about the people who are the most anxious are the ones who are lying to everyone about reality. And honestly, you guys, sometimes that's why I won't get on here, because I'm not about to lie to you guys about how great life is if it's not. So a lot of people will be like, life is great. I love being in my body. And then they go home and they have to stuff their faces because they hate themselves. And that's the right thing to say.
this album is like number one, and so you gotta be positive, even about your appearance. So I took on that language, but not necessarily. I don't think I felt it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, did you even want to embrace that, or you did it because you had to? Did you want to? Okay, right. Okay.
Yeah. It's there. It's not going anywhere.
And Lecrae said something really important. He said you did it because you had to, because remember, she was blowing up, no pun intended, at a time where big girls that was like the thing. Now we're entering into an era of like healthy and then maybe even skinny, which isn't always healthy. But Lecrae said it. Did you have to? Yes. It was like, you're going to be the Christian poster girl for obesity, and you need to be positive.
Going anywhere, and it's visible.
Yeah.
So you have to choose a side. Either I'm gonna be depressed about the way I look, or I'm gonna be positive about it.
Yeah.
I wish that I could say that I was okay with it, but I can't say that for sure.
Yeah.
And I know my family don't like for me to say that, because they're like, you were always just so, but it's just, I learned how to mask it behind language and behind my actions, that I'm okay with this, but I wasn't.
Nope. I love an honest woman. I just love an honest woman. I love it when I am not okay. I masked it because bottom line, I will say this till the cows come home. Bottom line, ain't nobody looking in the mirror at 400 pounds and saying, I love this. You don't even feel good. Like, the levels of depression that are coursing through your veins because of the toxins will not allow you to. And especially when you're a believer, you know that you're supposed to take care of your body. So I just love this honesty. I just love it. I love it.
Wasn't. And I think a lot of times, I want to say, I never said this either. I told you just make people feel comfortable. I think a lot of times culturally, we should be a little bit more empathetic about how we address the disease of obesity. Because not to be a spokesperson or anything, but I believe that I can speak on it because so many years I battled with it. I feel like people will be more open about their feelings about it, and maybe more open in addressing it if it wasn't such a negative approach to how you address it to people.
I agree with her here, because I think what we think is, it's not just like, it is self-control, right? Like, obesity is a self-control issue. But for so many people, particularly in the church community and particularly in the Black community, it is a result of a cultural dynamic where we ignore emotions, particularly with women and young girls, where we train them to stuff them down and do not give them healthy outlets to have conversations and address their emotions. And again, I will say this till the cows come home: just because you address an emotion does not mean you're letting it control you. And you know what's funny is that people will say, we have all these weird feelings about emotions, but yet the church is the fattest group of people on the earth, because we're afraid of emotions because we think they're going to control us. But I will say this again: David, Elijah, Isaiah, Peter, they all expressed deep emotion, and it didn't control them, but they learned how to process that with the Lord. So until we do that, we're going to struggle. And she's right. We have to talk about obesity as a foundational, emotional and psychological issue that is a result of parents not teaching their children how to process emotions properly.
Like, people say this, and I might get some lashing about this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. People say, like, you, even in church, we are reluctant to go into your churches because of the way you address it is jokingly. If we address it in a more loving and kind way, that's how I feel.
We understand this is a struggle, or this is your reality.
It's a disease.
Let's navigate this. I never even considered that.
I feel like and even when I started to lose the weight, I started having a conversation with my family about it, and I would say, looking back at pictures now, I'm like, man, I was dying. Y'all didn't say nothing. Well, we didn't know how to address it. We didn't know how to say it, and I think to speak on behalf of those who are plus size, if you do it in a more loving manner, like.
Kind of. A lot of people don't know what to say because they're also obese themselves. Like, everybody's in this circle where they're like, you're dying. She said, I'm dying. And nobody told me. But you guys, sometimes there's no loving, like, no amount of love and compassion will get someone to change. I'm sorry. She was in a place where she wanted to change. But you guys know I've worked with very, very obese people, and they will make excuses for themselves. They'll make excuses for themselves. And it doesn't matter how kind that you are. Some people, yes. But the truth is that sometimes people are just not ready to hear the truth. So there's a balance where it's like, yes, you need to, you don't need to condemn people, but you need to have honest conversations with them. And people who are willing to listen will be willing to listen.
Like, because I love you, I feel like maybe together we can address this in a way. What do you feel like would be the best way to do it? You know, for us to do it together. I don't know that people, and even especially back then, this was like the 90s. So nobody didn't have a lot of language for it. But I feel like now, if I were to give any advice in that area, it would be to do it in a loving way. Let them see the love of Christ in the way that you address it. And I think the response will be much better.
You breaking chains today.
I never said that before.
That's very educational for me too. Because I'm just, as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, man, at the end of the day, everybody's got some kind of insecurity.
Yes.
Every single human being understands. And most of the times you're slandering somebody else because it makes you feel better about yourself. You know what I mean? But I feel like everybody got something they're dealing with. But few of us are brave enough to say, hey, this is the thing. And I appreciate you saying like, hey, this has to be addressed differently.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I feel like it. And even, you know, with our churches and stuff, I think we should address health more, but in a way that's so loving. Like, create a space, create, I don't know, a small group that does working out, exercising, invite your friend to come with you, something like that, where it's not so aggressive and just
like you own,
take
like,
the
y'all
edge
need to
off.
do something different.
She's 100% correct. I was just talking to my mother about this. I'm like, where are my health? I don't have any healthy Christian friends. Like, I do, but they have all moved away. My Bay Area Christian friends, we hike, we go to the gym, we eat salads, we eat greens, we eat, you know, protein, we eat clean. And it's hard to find a church that actually cultivates health. Like, I don't know one church that, well, I do have, there's one church that I know of that has like a workout group or a fitness group. And I think it's because we're afraid that that means that we're automatically vain. But there are so many ways to take care of your body that do not involve the way you look. Like, you're dying. And so, and out of fear of idolizing your body, you won't work out. Like, give me a break.
Right. Yeah, take the edge
or
off
crack
of
a joke.
it. Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
You got my wheel spinning.
Yeah, because people's lives are hanging in a balance on that. Like, when I look back at those pictures, it makes me sad because I feel like maybe I didn't create the space for my family to address it with me. But also maybe they just didn't know how. Yeah. Yeah.
I to me though, like, hindsight or just looking at it, man, you got such a loving family too. So it's like, I'm just thinking like the stories you're telling, and then even, you know, knowing your husband too, it's like such an incredibly loving family.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned people, you know, being rude and saying wrong things online. We share some other things in common.
Yeah.
We've caught our fair share of attacks from people online.
Yeah.
For some similar reasons. And so let's rewind the tape a little bit.
Okay.
Let's go back to about 2014.
All right. I think that's it for where she talks about her obesity, but I'm just so glad that she brought this up. And I'm so glad that she's someone who's like a prominent figure in the church community, whether you agree with her politics or not, whether you agree with her decisions that she's made or not. The point is that she's right. The point is that people are dying in the body of Christ, and we don't care. We kind of put that as an issue that isn't important. And as I said at the beginning of this video, being Christian should be the healthiest people on the planet, because we should be the most well-rounded people on the planet. And when we know that obesity is a disease of the mind and the heart, meaning that if you don't address your emotional issues and your psychological issues, it will come out in your weight oftentimes. And so the question is, where does the Lord need to dig some of this stuff out in me so that I can release this weight? Right? So I'm so glad that she brought this up. I'm glad that she brought up the fact about being a PK and how much pressure that is. She didn't make the connection, I don't think, between that, but I'm making the connection for you, that there is a healthy way to develop young children so that they are they have responsibility and they're well-rounded, but they're not learning to stuff down their emotions and be adults too early. All right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this short video. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.